this whole user experience monitoring space. And yeah, I just want to start with a question. Do you think you have some monitoring tool in place already? Deliberately, you installed it, or you just have it? Okay. For everyone that didn't install a monitoring tool at all, someone is monitoring your site 24/7, in fact. And someone really knows when your site is performing badly, in fact. And someone will even penalize you if your performance isn't that good. So who could this be? In fact, it's Google. I proved this now. So it was in 2010 when Google started to factor in fact, site speed into its ranking results. And in 2015, we had this thing called mobile get-on. It was a little bit exaggerated, I would say, but yeah, Google started to say, okay, if your site is mobile friendly, we will in fact rank you higher. And this is the next thing. This is the future. Google is in fact testing a red slow label in the search results. So I don't know, do you want to be one of those? This isn't the link you want to click on, in fact, I would say. And if we put this all together, and I'm not talking about SEO now, I'm just talking about what are the factors from a performance perspective that really go directly into your ranking results. This means before all your social media, whatever, managers start to work on it and working on keywords, there are a few metrics that will go into your ranking. It's the bounce rate. I will cover them all in the next few slides. It's the speed of your site. It's the mobile friendliness. And basically, it's even the usability. And how does this look like? Let's look at those metrics. Bounce rate. So it's and I'm always saying Google here because it owns, I would say, most of the market, and yeah, this I could say search engines all the time here. So if we look at such a Google result, you just wanted to buy a flux capacitor, you know this from Back to the Future, and you click on this link, you have it here. Oh, there is it. Oh, and you see, that's just a replica. This is not the real one, so I need a real one. And you instantly go back to the search results. A search engine will know that you just bounced back. It will know that something on this site wasn't interesting enough to stay there. And that's a reason to penalize you there. Maybe this was not the content. Maybe there was an error there. Maybe the site was just slow. These are all reasons for users to just instantly come back to the search result, and this means something is fishy here. Then we have speed. I don't know, web page test, who knows it? Still not everyone. So really go to webpagetest.org if you have any website anywhere. Because this is really a great tool, and I'm showing you just a fraction of what it really does. So it will load your websites with different browsers and will really show you where time is spent and also show you, is this site fast, is this site slow? And in this case, when it comes to search engines and Google, the most important thing is this one. It's the start render here. What does this mean? So we have a few different metrics. At the load time, maybe you would be tempted to look at the load time. So 7 seconds, that's quite a lot. But this isn't such a problem. You often have high load times because your site is loading gradually, but what counts is when a user in fact sees content on the page, in fact can do something with the website. If below the fold, this means below your viewport, is anything loaded still or an image, that's not a big problem. Because when the user finally scrolls down, it will be loaded hopefully anyway. Then we have this first byte called time to first byte. It's also interesting because here you are measuring basically the performance of your network and the web server. So also DNS resolving. It means how long does it in fact take until from a request the server sends back the first byte. There you have this whole rendering phase. And this is basically for our company blog, and I worked really hard to get this down just by doing caching, really heavy caching here on the web server side, to just get this down and don't load off all the rendering to the PHP in this case, because it's WordPress. And then you have this, yeah, as I said, the start render. This just means, okay, now there's enough content or enough data available and nothing is blocking anymore, and the browser can start to render the page out and the user will in fact see something. And I've heard there are different rumors. I've heard that around 900 milliseconds should be the goal. So if you and your competitor have equally good pages and they would be ranked equally from incoming links, everything, and you are the one with the 800 milliseconds and the competitor is the one with the 1.5 seconds, you will be ranked higher in fact. This is how you can even look a little bit at it in Chrome Developer Tools. You can look at the time to first byte and you can see, okay, where is the page spending its time. So you have all those timings in your developer tools also. I've talked about usability and mobile friendliness before. There is this Google page speed test. I don't know if you know this. Who knows it? Few. So it's provided even by Google. You have this input box there you put in your URI, and then it will assess the page and tell you, okay, is this page loading quickly? Is there blocking JavaScript somewhere in the header? Is the overall, and that's interesting, how is the overall user experience? And basically this tells us even that the user experience is okay, but the tab targets are too small. So it really, this is really an in-depth analysis of the mobile website. In fact, this say, okay, how good, how easy is it for the user to just tap on a link? And there is this navigation we all hate in the company, and we are working to get it away. Because for me it's still not a good usability at all, because there is so much navigation going on before even the content starts. In fact, but it's for Google it's still okay. So you can really assess and test your site for that for free at all. You just have to do it. In fact. So it would be interesting to know what the monitor is doing at all. So we are maybe just want to monitor the monitor. Interesting question. How much do you think, what is the fraction of search engine or Google traffic on your websites? 10%? 40%? 50? 60? Yeah, at some point you have to raise your hand. In fact, we have seen it at the customer. It's in fact 67% for BVA auction, a big company, 67% of the traffic they see is in fact from search engine. That's ridiculous. They say, in fact, we have one data center just dedicated to Google. And they are also, for sure, trying to optimize this in some ways, because you know when it's Google, and you can try to deliver different content, or try to do it maybe a little bit cheaper and deliver it through a cache and don't have so much CPU power in there. But I'd say this is really an interesting one. And we also see, and this is what you can do with basically various tools, you can look at what the robot is in fact doing on your page. And we see it even behaves differently, because we see here there is a bot that crawls around 50,000 pages. And then there is one that just crawls this 10,000 for a visit. So it has some kind of logic in there. Sometimes it goes through it and looks at everything. Sometimes it just looks at a fraction of the page. And it even, this is what we found out, and it's always our blog in this case, we even see that it's always revisiting pages that are slow on our page. It's coming back and saying, maybe it's faster now, let's see. And really, so it really has an enormous amount of logic in there. And this is, I think, for me, this was a real eye-opener to find this out at all. So this is user experience monitoring, and this requires JavaScript. And these are the visits from Googlebot in Mountain View. And as you see here, this is one single user action. This means we have an agent in place on our website, and this agent needs to execute to provide even those metrics. And as you easily see here, it does provide metrics for this Googlebot. So it's not true anymore, and I was telling this for a long time, basically, that Google doesn't interpret JavaScript. In fact, it does. It's no problem for Google to interpret the JavaScript. So maybe you don't even have to optimize it in a way that it delivers a completely static page for search engines. So Google went with the time here, and and it has a JavaScript interpreter built in, basically. If we put all those things that could happen on a website together, we come to something I would call the spiral of death. For that, I just took a look at a few, I would say, root causes here. So we have slow response time on a website. Maybe there are happening some page errors. And the usability is, for some reason, is bad. So these are the causes, basically. And then I thought, okay, what are the results of these causes? And I came up with that. So I said, okay, in slow response times, they somehow relate to increased bounce rates. And I went further and tried to find out, okay, how do they relate together? And I came up with that. And that's interesting because it's kind of a self-amplifying circuit, you know? So those root causes really cause problems on different fields that together really, really harm your business. Let's look at a few of them. So if you have a bad usability, you will have frustrated users. You will get increased bounce rates. You will get bad search engine ranks. Increased bounce rates consequently also needs decreased sales on the site. But bad search engine rank also means you have a decreased number of visitors and again decreased sales. So these multifactors here together really show how important really performance is. That's not just a thing. So yeah, let's make it a little quicker. Let's improve the usability a bit to get a few more conversions out of a page. This really means that can mean, is our business in fact successful or isn't it? I would like to put it this way. This is a slide I'm showing mostly in DevOps spaces. So you have here your great data center. Everything is redundant. There's really, really much money in there. You distribute it through a CDN. It's just great. And you have this add to cart button on your website. And when a user clicks this happens. Because just the UI guys did something there. It's just a typo, basically. If this happens, your site isn't a little bit broken, it's utterly completely broken. So every investment you did in these areas is completely useless here. And I think that's important to know. You really have to look at applications as a whole, in fact. So we talked about problems on the website, bounce rates, speed, and in some way this, because there are humans in place, it always comes back to satisfaction. And we were dealing with this very, very difficult question in how to measure satisfaction, in fact. This is something that's even sounds philosophical. So when are our users in fact satisfied? And we tried to break this down to some kind of metric that we call the user experience index, and we were also in the committee for the AppDex. I will talk about that a little bit later. And now we're trying to make this a standard. So this is completely open, and you can basically apply these ideas to your sites in the way you want. So we're still saying, okay, a user is either satisfied, tolerating, frustrated. That's maybe easy. We ourselves sometimes in between those feelings, but let's put it like that. So satisfied, tolerated, and frustrated. And there are some metrics we are putting together to find out if the user is likely to be in one of those stages here. And the first ingredient here is the AppDex. Who knows AppDex? Okay, I have to explain this. So the AppDex was a way to assess the satisfaction rate of users by just looking at page timing, loading times, basically. So you defined some value. You say every loading time with 2 seconds is okay. A user is satisfied. Everything to 8 seconds, so the 4 times the satisfied rate is somehow tolerating, and everything else means the user is frustrated. You will see this in many, many monitoring tools, basically. So this is a very common metric. The problem here is that this was good in maybe 2012, but now we have the problem that we have many, many single-page applications. And they don't work through loading times, in fact, because you just load the page one time and then you are operating within this page. And this does mean that we cannot use only this AppDex for to measure satisfaction at all. But we factor this into this user experience index because at some point the page should load, so it makes sense to just to keep this still. Errors. So you have this page and you get this or this. It also applies to mobile apps, or this. And I don't know. I am frustrated when I see something like that. So we can be very, very sure that if an error happens, the user is most likely to be in some way frustrated. But we have to factor in one other thing still, and it's the context. Because if we look at this is how a user taps through an application basically. And we see that here is the last action was, successful. This is the last thing we saw from the user. We can say, okay, if the last action was successful, she or he is most likely to be quite satisfied in some way, but at least not frustrated when we look at this interaction with our system. But what happens if this happens? So if the last thing we see from a user in any application is an error on our system, it's very, very likely that the user went away very frustrated because he wasn't able to fulfill the task he was trying to do here. So this is an ingredient I would say we should factor into this whole user experience. And then we also have this one. This is Saul standing somewhere in Albuquerque and trying to get some connection. And it simply makes a difference if I am in an outback in Australia or maybe in a conference Wi-Fi. It's quite the same from the connectivity point of view. Or I'm sitting with DSL in my flat at home. It's a different. I cannot say that a user will be equally frustrated with long loading times in this outback compared to when he is sitting at home. It's just we can say, okay, this user will be used to slow loading times, so just don't account this loading times, this performance so high, because he knows that loading a page takes 10 seconds where he is. So we factor this in as well. And what we get in the end is something we call user experience index, and there we have it. We have in there the app tags, we have in there the errors, we have in there the user environment and the user behavior, in fact. This was quite theoretical. Let's look at this in action. I just want to show you this on a live demo. I'm taking the risk again, and if it doesn't work, I have screenshots ready. Again, this is our product, but this in fact does not mean that you can't do it with every tool you have. So we have there's such a dashboard that in fact shows our user experience index in different ways. And let's look at this land card, this map. We see quite clearly and that, this whole, I would say, Europe-ish space here is quite satisfied. It also differs from the time you're in currently. We see that some in America, this doesn't look that good. We can even look at this and see, okay, the user experience index is okay. There are 18 satisfied users, in fact, but 5 tolerating ones. And this means, okay, maybe we should start to distribute our page maybe through a CDN to get better loading times in this area of the world. Australia is very bad, as always. And if we take a step back, here we have our smileys in there. And that's interesting because we can, in fact, if we start to correlate all the data we have, and we see, okay, we have here 5.5% frustrated users, then it's interesting to look into that. So we can drill in there and see, oh, frustrated user experience, which clients are involved? Are those just Android phones maybe? Or is it Internet Explorer 6? So we can really try to trace down root causes and try to pinpoint problems and really isolate this to some device types or geographical regions, whatever. So you can really get a deep impression of what's really going on, not just, oh, some users are frustrated. Basically, we don't know what's happening here. Then there is also something we call omni-channel. This would be a talk on its own, but basically it means that customers expect that the same user experience no matter from which devices they come, in fact. So this means that we just have to look at how our conversion rates are doing on different devices. How does this correlate to the user experience index at all? Do we see that the conversion rate is really low for this device, for instance? These conversions don't apply in a way for certain kinds of application, for instance, telebanking applications. Everyone is looking up their account on the application, but no one, if we count it as conversion, if a user really somehow transfers money through it, it will be very low because almost no one does it, in fact. So here you always have to take this with a grain of salt, in fact. Here we're ready. And we even can put it a little bit deeper if we want to see, okay, we have here all our frustrated users, in fact, and then we can, in fact, drill into that and even look at where does this user come from, in fact, what happened, what was the flow here, what was an error in this flow, which device did this one user use. This makes sense if you are in a support department, because you can say, oh, are you this user coming from South America? Yeah, I see you, I see what's happening there. And that's always quite interesting and really helps to pinpoint problems, basically. So this is the user experience applied. And I would really invite you to just try it out with every tool you want to use. It's just one way to do it like that, basically. And this is the end. Are there any questions left?
So for example, building a high-performance site where you really care about speed, but you also care about insights, how do you suggest approach the analytics tools and the fact that how they affect the speed? Because the screen recorders that record video and stuff, they really take a hit on the performance.
Yeah, it's always a trade-off, for sure. It's even a trade-off. I hate it with our agent we have, that it's basically loading blocking in the header. You have to do it, but it still gives you some penalty. But if this is the only problem, it's neglectable, I would say, because we're talking about milliseconds here if you do it right. But it's still a trade-off, for sure.
Was this program an in-house development or is it open source?
This is Dynatrace. This is our product, basically. So, but you can, much of the things I show, you can basically put together yourself. The strength of Dynatrace is to provide transaction flows to really big application where you really see every tier of the application. But if you're on a smaller environment, you can build it yourself, basically, and build some dashboarding around that. Okay, then thank you.